Daniel prophesied that Jerusalem would be destroyed in 70 AD and the people would be scattered. Here we are today. Some 2,000 years have passed by. And what is our future? Do you know what's coming? So let's get real, let's get practical. Let me prove to you the authenticity and the power of the prophetic word of God. 76 years ago, we're modern day. 76 years ago, 1948, Israel was reborn as a nation after 2,000 years of non-existence. What do you think it means? 57 years ago, in 1967, Israel regained control and possession of Jerusalem. After some 2,000 years. Do you realize that this in itself, what? Israel becoming a nation in 1948 and Israel retaking Jerusalem in 1967. This in itself is a fulfillment of the prophecy of Jeremiah. The prophet Jeremiah lived about 600 years before Christ. Jeremiah prophesied the regathering of the Jewish people from the four corners of the earth. Jeremiah's prophecy is about an event that is even bigger than God bringing Israel out of Egypt. And for many of you in this room right now, there are people in here that more than likely you were alive in 1948. My point is, it happened in your generation. It was 8 years before I was born, 1948. It was 8 years before me. But it's our day, it's our time. Let me set this up. 600 years before Jesus is born in Bethlehem, the prophet Jeremiah announces that something is coming in the distant future that is bigger than Israel coming out of Egypt. Now, if you know anything about the story of Israel, what's the main event in the story of Israel, in the Jewish people? What's the main event? That they were slaves in Egypt for 400 years and God sent Moses and took them out of Egypt. You know, when they went to Egypt in the time of Joseph, when they went to Egypt, there were about 70 Jews on the whole earth. That's all there was. 70. 400 years later, because of God's supernatural multiplication and blessing of these people, 400 years after they entered Egypt, when Moses comes, we estimate there are more than 2 million people, 70 to 2 million. And God sends Moses, and he picks up these 2 million people who are slaves, and he leads them across the wilderness into the promised land called Canaan. It is the main event in Israel's history. Here's the point. The prophet Jeremiah comes upon the scene 600 years before Christ and announces, in the future, there's something coming bigger than the Exodus of Egypt. That's what the word Exodus means. Something's coming that's even bigger. What would be bigger than Israel coming out of Egypt? Jeremiah 23:7. Let me say it before I read it. It happened in our generation. It happened in our day. In that day, says the Lord, when people are taking an oath, they will no longer say, as surely as the Lord lives, who rescued the people of Israel from the land of Egypt. No, that'd be old news. Instead, they will say, as surely as the Lord lives, who brought the people of Israel back to their own land, from the land of the north and from all the countries to which he had exiled them. Then they will live in their own land. Do you understand what he's saying? There's something in the distant future that'll be way bigger than what he did in Egypt. It'll be when, in 1948, when he takes the people from all over the world and brings them back and reestablishes a nation that had been dead for 2,000 years. So put it on the screen. Scattered, that's the first son, and defeated, that's Jezreel. The second child, a girl, not loved, lo Rahama, and now not my people, lo Ami. For Israel is not my people, and I am not their God. Do you understand what that name means? Israel now belongs to another lover. They hoard after the other lover, and God gives them over to their other lover. Not my people. What does that actually look like? Not to my people. You don't belong to me. Scattered, defeated. You will lose your independence and you will lose your military power because you are not my people. Then something amazing happens in verse 10. God makes a prophetic announcement to the prophet Hosea. Remember, this event happened around 700 years before Christ. Are you ready for this prophecy today from the God of Hosea? The prophecy of God to the people of Israel that God said, scattered and defeated, not loved, and now not my people. Verse 10, yet the time will come. This is the prophecy of Hosea. The time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then at the place where they were told, you are not my people, it will be said, you are the children of God. Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together, and they will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people in his land. And in that day, you will call your brothers Ami, my people, and you will call your sister Rahama, the ones I love. Lo Ami means what? Not my people. Lo Rahama means not the ones I love. But he's going to take the L-O off of the name. Do you remember the names of the first son of the marriage of whoredom, Jezreel? I told you that Jezreel had two definitions in Hebrew. First is God scatters, and second is God sows. God scatters, and God announces a future prophecy in which God will sow. Here it comes. Yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too numerous to count. Now, before I get too deep into this prophecy, can anyone see 1948 in the scriptures? Anybody see it? The Jews were almost totally wiped out from the earth during the Holocaust of World War II. And then there's a regathering after World War II, after the Holocaust. But something supernatural happened in 1948. Do you know what had happened in 1948? Jezreel. God sows. It's the name. God sows. Yet the time will come when Israel will be like the sands of the seashore. There'll be too many to count. Now, I don't think 1948 is the final fulfillment of this Hosea prophecy, but it's definitely an intermediate fulfillment of that prophecy. God scatters has been changed in our generation to God sows. And now there are more than 7 million Jews living in the sovereign nation of Israel, surrounded by, guess what? Are you ready? Surrounded by the Jezreel Valley. It's a real place. Some 2,700 years after the time of Hosea, you've got 7 million Jews living in a sovereign land of Israel, surrounded by the Jezreel Valley. And do you know what the other name of the Jezreel Valley is? The Valley of Armageddon. It's the same valley. God scatters, God sows. That's the meaning of the word Jezreel, the first son of whoredom. But what about the second and third child of Israel's whoredom? They were scattered and defeated, Jezreel. They were not loved, lo Rahama, and not my people, lo Ami. Compare all that horror to the future prophecy of Hosea. Can you see the mercy and grace of God? Verse 10, I want to read it again. Yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. And then at the place where they were told, in the place where they were told, you're not my people, it'll be said, you are the children of the living God. You're going to go from not my people to now the children of the living God. In the place where you were told, it'll be untold. Only the supernatural power of God could make this happen to the nation of Israel in 1948 and in 1967 when they took over Jerusalem. I want you to notice this next part. When Israel was destroyed, they were two kingdoms. They were the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. But Hosea's prophecy is that they will one day be regathered and restored as one kingdom. Do you understand that in 1948, when Israel was restored, they didn't come back as Israel and Judah, two kingdoms, they came back as one, fulfilling Hosea's prophecy. Verse 11, let me read it again. Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together, one nation, not two. They will choose one leader for themselves and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people, God sows, that's Jezreel, in his land. In 1948 and 1967, they are just the beginning of the fulfillment of this prophecy of Hosea. The three children of whoredom were given to illustrate the whoredom of the northern kingdoms of Israel. They were scattered and defeated. They were not loved and not my people. But that same prophecy reveals the ultimate plan of God for Israel and Judah. It's all in the same prophecy. This is the overturning of the third child of whoredom. Hosea 2, verse 1. In that day, you will call your brother Ami, my people. And you will call your sister Rahumah, the one I love. What will be the ultimate fulfillment of that verse? I wonder if you know. I wonder how many people in the church know. What will be the ultimate fulfillment of this prophecy? Everything in the Bible is going to happen exactly as he said it. It's unstoppable. Let's go back to the beginning. The people wanted a miraculous sign to prove the authority of Jesus. Is that you today? Come on, be honest with yourself. Is that you today? You're still waiting for a sign. Prove it to me, God. Prove it to me. Let me throw something out there. What if I told you that every sign you need today is already written down? And if you had eyes to see today, you would be able to look and see the signs that were predicted taking place around you right now, if you had eyes to see. You don't need a new sign. You need to be able to see the signs that are already there. Let me give you one. Actually, I'll give you several. The prophet Ezekiel lived about 600 years before Christ. And God gave Ezekiel a sign. And God told Ezekiel to write the sign down for future generations, those Ninevites in Kentucky in the future. They're going to read the sign, Ezekiel, that I posted to you, and they're going to read it and be able to interpret the times that they live in. That sign that Ezekiel wrote down 600 years before Christ is brightly shining around us today, if you have eyes to see. An undeniable sign of proof around us today. A sign that was fulfilled 77 years ago. In 1948. There are people in the room right now today. You were alive in 1948 when this sign recorded by Ezekiel was written down for those who have eyes to see. What was it that happened 77 years ago? What was it that happened in 1948? What sign? Israel was reborn. After 2,000 years of being gone, scattered around the world, destroyed pretty much, reborn in 1948. All because God posted a sign for those who have eyes to see. Let me read it to you. Ezekiel's sign, chapter 36. For I will gather you up from all the nations and bring you home again to your land. Do you need a sign? I will gather you up from all the nations and bring you home again. I need to make something very clear. This sign wasn't fulfilled because of the righteousness of the Jewish people. That's not why he did it. In fact, many of the Jewish people, quite frankly, they're agnostic or atheists. And many of the Jewish people still to this day reject Jesus as the Jewish Messiah. That's not why he did it. That's not why he did it. Let me make it clear. He did it because of this, Ezekiel 36:22. Therefore, give the people of Israel this message from the sovereign Lord. I am bringing you back, but not because you deserve it. I'm doing it to protect my holy name, on which you brought shame while you were scattered among the nations. And then God did something. Listen. Then the Lord took Ezekiel into the valley of dry bones, and he gave him a vision. He gave him a sign. Ezekiel has posted the sign so that this generation will look at the sign and interpret the times we live in, if you have eyes to see. The Lord took hold of me, and I was carried away by the Spirit of the Lord to a valley filled with bones. And he led me all around among the bones that covered the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground and were completely dried out. And then he asked me, Son of man, can these bones become living people again? Oh, sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. And I jumped down to verse 9. And then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to the winds, son of man. Speak a prophetic message and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, O breath from the four winds, breathe into these dead bodies so that they may live. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life, and they stood up on their feet, a great army. Anybody see a resurrection? Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. Let there be no doubt who he's talking about. These bones in Ezekiel's vision represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I will open your graves. I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. And then I will bring you back to the land of Israel. And when this happens, 1948, 77 years ago. Anybody listening? And when this happens, oh my people, you will know I am the Lord. You need a sign? You still need a sign? And I will put my spirit in you, Israel, and you will live again and return home to your own land. Then you will know that I am the Lord, that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done what I said. Yes, the Lord has spoken. You and I live in this generation. 77 years ago, something supernatural happened on the earth. God posted a sign in the time of Ezekiel. He fulfilled the sign 77 years ago. Jesus comes on the scene and he announces that there's a fig tree. And if the fig tree is Israel, and Jesus' analogy, and I believe it is, Jesus says this fig tree, when it comes, it will not pass away. When the fig tree is born, when the fig tree takes root, this generation will not pass away until everything I have told you will be accomplished. If Israel is the fig tree and the fig tree was born in 1948, the question for all of us would be, how long is a generation? For this generation will not pass away until all of this is fulfilled. How long is a generation? Moses, the man of God, has one psalm, P-S-A-L-M, one psalm. David's got a bunch of psalms. There's a lot of writers in the book of Psalms, and Moses has got one. It's Psalm 90. Guess what he does in Psalm 90? He announces a generation. Now, I'm not predicting, I'm not date setting, I'm just reading, searching God's word. Moses says that the time of man is 70 and sometimes with God's favor, 80. 70 to 80. The fig tree blossomed 77 years ago. What does it mean? You want another one? On November 27th of this past year, the Sanhedrin Council in Jerusalem, there is such a thing, sent a message to all the Jewish people around the world. Do you know what the message said? This is last November. The message said this: all Jews worldwide must come home to Israel immediately. Do you need a sign? You can interpret everything, but you can't see the signs of the times? That's what he said to the religious people of that day. Can't you see? I don't want to be rude. Listen, I do not want to be rude. I love you. I love you enough to tell the truth. I don't want to be rude, but if you're still waiting for a sign, Jesus, not me, Jesus calls you a fool. I want to read it to you so that you know it was him and not me that said it. Verse 56, you fools. You know how to interpret the weather signs of the earth and the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times. Ancient history about a bunch of Jewish people traveling from Egypt to Canaan. Preacher, ancient history about a bunch of Jews traveling from Egypt to Canaan. You're talking to me? What's it got to do with me? It's all a warning to you from God. It's a warning about the people who will live in the generation of the last days. You talking to me? You know that people, and I touched on this the last 2 weeks, you know that ancient people that we're talking about today? Those ancient Jewish people were without a homeland for 2,000 years. But have you noticed that they've had a homeland called Israel for the last 77 years? And there's this strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn against the lambs, and there's the sign of Jonah, and all of that reveals that the signs were all around the people all the time, but they didn't see them. All of that was in advance, notified in advance. These things happened to them as an example for us. They were written down. They were written down. They were written down to warn us who live at the end of the age. With love, I warn you today.